So today we're going to start off with the number one tool. If you are going to go on a change program, if you are going to go on personal development, if you are going to transition, if you are going to shift, the heartbeat of your personal development should be your journal. It's not easy, you know, a bit like a phone memory. You know, when a phone memory starts to shut the phone down because there's got no more memory. We're basically like that at the moment, aren't we? We've hardly got any extra space to take in new stuff, even when people send you articles, and it might be about the pandemic, it might be about masks, it might be about personal development or change or transformation. It's almost like we've got no more memory space to take on and absorb anymore. So, you know, this is what we've learned over many years in personal development when we're coaching people from the TV world and CEOs, young mums and guys starting up businesses from home. You know, we haven't got that mind space to look at new concepts, to look at new ways of doing things, to look at our behaviours and habits. So coming back to the point, what a journal does, it becomes your homepage. It becomes a place where you put all of your development. I'm going to explain in a bit what people put into their journal, because it's so much more than expressive writing down your thoughts and feelings and what happened that day. So there's 50 other things. I'm going to cover several of them that you can use for your journal practice. So, you know, if you are going to create your own life story, which is the title of our forthcoming book, you know, journaling comes up in the book all the time because it's become such a profound tool and instrument to help people with their self-development. Because just think about it logically, we're so close to our own lives that we often don't see the blind spots. They're called blind spots, you know. And of course, when coaching sort of really started, probably in sports in the sort of 70s and then really seriously in the 80s, you know, let's get back to the basics of coaching. You know, coaching is about, there is stuff, number one, 3 levels. Number one is that there is stuff that you want to change. You know it shows up in your life. You know it sabotages you. You know it's an unhealthy habit. For instance, it might be particular eating, it might be anger issues, and you've got no tolerance and you've got no patience. So we know that there is stuff that we need to deal with. We've observed it. We're going through the pain and suffering of it. Other people have perhaps told us in different ways, good and bad, that we've got this habit. And so there's number one, there's stuff we're aware of that we do want to change. Number 2 level of coaching is there is stuff that we're aware of, but we just don't want to go there at the minute. A bit like a scar, we don't want to pick it. So that will come in time, but there is stuff that we are absolutely aware of, but we will not go anywhere near it. It's too painful, it's too involved with suffering, it brings up too much traumatic experiences and thoughts and feelings, so we don't go anywhere near it. Number 3 is an interesting one, because number 3 is our blind spot. So there are behaviours that are self-sabotaging to us, that don't serve us, that cause us friction in our relationships, and we're not even aware of it. It's called blind spots. So what we find is that when we coach people at the beginning, of course all the number ones come out. You know, they want to tell you about all the things they've made lists for, put in their journal for. You know, they need to change because it's not conducive to their life story or when they want to go. It's causing them pain and suffering. So number 1, we start working on the good stuff. And this is what the magic of coaching. And this is the magic of self-coaching, which is what some of you guys are going to do when you look at a journal practice, is that as you start with the stuff that you want to go near, number 2 and number 3 magically start to bubble to the surface as well, because you know once you clear the big plates, the plates that you want to deal with, there's the plates that you don't want to deal with. So that is the magic of the coaching process, because all growth, all transformation, a bit like the caterpillar to the butterfly, it's all about process. People get so impatient about changing habits and behaviors because they want to change habits and behaviors overnight, and all habits and embedded behaviors need time patience, love. They need compassion, which is self-compassion. Because if we're going to change stuff that's not working for us and bring more stuff in that is working for us, we need to have self-love and self-compassion, because it's not easy. You know, the two most powerful emotions, negative emotions that we all experience, I don't know if you guys know this, but it's usually shame and guilt. Fear is another big powerful one, but that's more of a generic one. There's a lot under the umbrella of fear. So what we've got to do is we take on board all of these things that are spinning around our head, and that's going to go into our journal practice. So just quickly, in a minute or two, the background of journaling, if you want to look it up. So there was a guy, a professor, James Pennebaker. I'll put these details up later. He's a professor of psychology at the University of Texas, and he started to come up with the word expressive writing. So he started to put some science behind what we call healing through the arts. So he started to look at expressive writing and come up with scientific tests that could road test, you know, how powerful and how healing expressive writing, and whether it's through the written word or through art therapy was. And if you look up his work, it's amazing. He's really spent his life, I think this has been going on since like the 80s, because what he found is that when returning veterans from so it was the 90s, returning veterans from the first Iraqi war were struggling to get rid of their emotions, trapped emotions. So what Pennebaker worked out is that they didn't want to take therapy, they refused counsellors, they didn't want medication unless forced to. So what they found is that they got the returning veterans, the soldiers from the war, to start writing down their stuff in private, and then once they worked through that process, they started to realise then they would be ready for the second step, which is therapy and counselling. So that's what really triggered Pennebaker to start looking at this in the science. And cut a long story short, because we could be all day on just Pennebaker, but you know what he found is that through journaling and expressive writing, and I'm going to describe a couple of the break down different groups in a minute, but these are the top line events. He found that your immune system strengthens, your nervous system, which is basically our emotions, our nervous system calm down. We can manage our emotions and feelings a lot easier. Sleep patterns were better. Mental health and emotional health improved. And another thing was blood pressure, because what he found is that he would measure, give you one example, he would measure one lot of people that were expressive writing, one that weren't, and he would take blood samples over days, and the people that did express their writing, their narrative through journal practice, found that on many different levels their blood levels balanced and come back into alignment. So what he also discovered, which was interesting, is that, and there's been a lot of art therapists look at this as well, is that keeping it really simple, which is what we want to do this next couple of weeks. So excuse me if I'm not coming out with the psychology sort of terms and everything, but it's my job to sort of try and just give the basics. What Pennebaker and others have discovered is that the brain's job is simple: to understand our life events and make sense of them. Sounds pretty simple, doesn't it? Boy, do we make hard work of it. So, Pennebaker understood that if we started to understand our life events and experiences, make sense of them, come home to them, own them, because that's a big thing, isn't it? Take responsibility for them. If we own them, make sense of them, heal them, repair them, forgive ourselves or others, learn our life lesson and take it away. Almost think of it like a golden nugget. Where's my life lesson? If we could take the life lesson away, what he found is that the brain would calm. And all of this process is possible through the art of journaling. So if writing helps you to articulate the narrative of the story, the experiences, the trauma, good stuff and bad stuff. We don't want to make it just about bad stuff, because don't forget we learn just as much from the good and the bad, and we model, or what the ideal situation is that we model good behavior, good stuff that works for us, and we get rid of and learn from stuff we have to keep away from, which is the bad stuff that's not working for us. So writing about our grief, our trauma, our suffering allows us to take a step back when writing. And don't forget, there's a different process, like I mentioned in yesterday morning's session. When we get to this point where we write everything down, we look at it differently. So, we see it in one perspective inside the head, but we look at it differently when we write it down and get it out of our feelings and thoughts, out of the body, and we get it down onto paper. So that's the magic of journaling, is that you're not trying to work all this out in your head, because two things are going to guarantee you, and this happens with every client. So, take their stories as an example. If you keep trying to do this personal development, growth, transformation in your head rather than getting it out onto paper, there's two things going to happen. One is overthinking, and one is overwhelm. Overthinking is obviously in the head, thoughts ruminate, worst case scenario. It's like being caught on a carousel, thinking. But the problem with after that, if you basically thinking is the fire starter, the ignition, if you keep thinking, you will overfeel. And that is called overwhelm, because emotions are in the body. If you experience emotions on a daily basis in your body, they're not in your head. So getting this stuff down of your thoughts and feelings is the prime goal of journaling. So I want you to imagine that we always think that we have to deal with all the stuff that's going on in our life at once. And it's not true. If you just think that you're on stage, best way to see it is you're a plate spinner. You're on stage and there's 10 poles, and the poles that are closest to you are great big serving plates. So they're like 2 feet wide, and they're spinning, or you're trying to spin them to keep them from crashing. Now, the problem is we're often trying to be plate spinners with all the issues in our life, all the trauma, all the dilemmas, all the challenges. Now, we mustn't do that, because if you try and spin too many plates, you are going to be in problems. So the thing to look at it is that look at the biggest stuff that is keeping you awake at night, that keeps bouncing back to you, that it's on a repeat pattern, that you don't seem to ever shake off. That is the big plate, obviously. Don't go looking for the little saucers at the other end of the stage, which are the little niggly problems, because I guarantee you, and we've done this for a long time now, if you don't deal with the big plates, because basically what are we as human beings? We're pain avoiding pleasure seekers. So if you avoid the big plates and try and go for the little plates, you're going to mop up all the little niggly shit that's going on in your life, but you're not going to deal with the big stuff. And it's the big stuff that brings us down. So if you can see it, that these plates are there to be looked at, the big stuff, start with just 1 or 2 things that are troubling you, that are keep repeating on you, that keep bouncing back to you. That is the stuff that you work on. That is the stuff you start on a little project in the journal. So pick 1 or 2 issues. Now, I'll give you a technique which actually a client called Angie gave this to me many years ago, and it's worked really well in all forms of coaching. So what you do is you would take a page, lined page, blank page, in a little exercise book, journal, if you've started a journal practice, and you would divide that page up into 3. So it would be top, middle, and bottom. Now, the brain loves to get caught in the detail. It loves to get caught in the story and the trauma. And we've got to get away from that. So what this journal practice does is that on the top section, literally in a couple of sentences, you write, this is what happened. So even if you want to write that word in, this is what happened, put a line under it, and then write a couple of lines of the story. So it's really thrashing it out with all the detail, without all the padding, without all the heaviness and everything else that goes around it. So this is what happened, couple of lines, probably 3 or 4 at most, no more. Keeps it really to the point. You're right into the juice of the story. The middle section, in the middle, the layer, this is how I felt. What we're trying to really do is get into the emotion, because it's not the thoughts we're really looking at, it's the emotions. So that middle section, very important. Couple of lines again, this is how I felt. Bottom section, Number 3, now you can use this page in your journal as past or future. So what I mean by that is that if it's something that you're dealing with in real time right now, make sure that you can look at it and say, you know, a plan of what you're going to do. So for instance, if you're struggling with confrontation, you know, this is what happened at work or home, this is how I felt. Number 2, number 3, this is how I'm going to deal with it. But also what is good in the journal is to look back on past experiences to see how you overcome it, because what that will do at your lowest point, when your confidence and self-esteem are low and you're trapped, or you feel you're trapped in a corner and you can't remember how to get out of it, what you do is go, hang on a minute, I remember that same situation a couple of months ago. So you go back to your journal and it's giving you a playbook of what happened, how you felt and how you got out of it. So you can use it for past or to future, and that way you're going to really sort of be able to sort of formulate and get that, you know, really get that sort of experience down quickly so that you can deal with it. Because the object is in your journaling, make it, you know, less is more. What we talked about with the headline of this next couple of weeks, you know, complexity to simplicity. If we've got stuff to sort out, we've got to keep it simple. So this journaling really, you know, in the last sort of 5 minutes that we're going to really wrap it, I'm going to move a bit faster now, is that, you know, it's about a way of checking in with yourself to see what's going on. And what I mean by checking in is that what's happening to my thoughts, what's happening to my feelings. It's allowing us a time to pause, because that's what we need to, you know, if we're going to come to the T-junction, and you know, and not do the normal thing, which is go ahead and make the same mistakes, think the same way, feel the same way. We need to stop at the traffic lights and realize that there's another turning left, there's another turning right, and you know, if you keep on doing what you've always done, you'll keep on getting what you've always got. So that's the old mantra that we roll out time and time again. So pausing, and this is why sort of people that teach journaling say often, why don't you try and write just for a little bit in your non-dominant hand? Because what that non-dominant hand will do, it will make you slow down actually, because the brain is wired, as you know, with the right side of the brain connects to the left side of the body and vice versa. What is good is that it connects different parts of the brain. So writing with your non-dominant hand will slow you down and start connecting to different places in the brain. So this journaling is about you observing, pausing, looking at what's happening with clarity, with a creative, imaginative mind, is looking at all these things that are getting in your way. And the best way to work with your journal is to write questions at the top of the page, because the brain loves to get its teeth into questions. So for instance, you know, an easy question, I'm not going to go through them all, an easy few questions would be, you take at the top of the page, underline it and write, what is working for me right now? What is working for me right now? Seems a really easy question, doesn't it? Because, you know, but we often don't ask ourselves, you know, what is working well for me right now? What is really helping me to thrive and flourish? Great words, thrive, flourish, you know, great positive psychology words. So there's another 100 questions you could put around that. And then another question could be, what's not working for me right now? What's getting in my way right now? What am I tolerating? Great word in coaching, tolerating. Because when we start to tolerate something, we're very close to having enough of it and we want to change it. So what am I tolerating? Another one, what's my non-negotiables? And what I mean by that is that what am I no longer prepared to negotiate with myself over my principles, values, the way I allow people to talk to me, the way I allow my mother-in-law to sort of put me down. You know, our non-negotiables are our fixed place of values. So non-negotiable is I'm no longer prepared to do that. I'm not, no matter if I'm tired or not, I'm not giving that away, and I'm making sure that I do that behavior. So what is in the journal apart from expressive writing? So I'm going to go through very quickly in the last few minutes what this is all about as far as what we put in with the journal. So expressive writing is number 1. Number 2 would be look at patterns. So in the personal development journals that me and Jane are designing with the design team, we've designed something called Habit Tracker. And a habit tracker is that if you want to change a certain behavior and habit, you've got to track it. And that means old habits that you're trying to get rid of and new habits that you're trying to bring in and endorse. So a habit tracker is basically a habit or a behavior that you've become aware of that's not working for you or is working for you to hold your life together. Because don't forget, good habits do hold us together, as well as bad ones bring us down. So, you're looking at trying to write into your journal your habit trackers of what's working for you and what's not working for you. Another thing that people think that they've got to put just narrative, just writing into their journal, use art. If art is your thing, and mind mapping and colouring and drawing, if that's your type of art, use it as a mixture of sort of therapy, art, healing, expressive writing, all mixed in with lots of colour and imagery. So that is art. Another thing that goes into your journal is your goals and visions. What do you want to set for your future? It sounds a bit mad, doesn't it? But so many of us, when we're going through times of trauma and pain and confusion and breakup and, am I enough? Am I good enough? All the millions of things that can bring us down, we forget to write down short and long-term goals of where we want to get to. Because it's a bit like sat-nav, isn't it? You wouldn't dream of getting in the car and just saying, oh, where am I going to go? I don't know. You plot the coordinates. You know the image of the place that you want to arrive at and what sort of time. Well, we do the same with journaling. We do the same with coaching, because if you put your goals and visions down, short and long-term goals, into your book, you've got something to keep coming back to all the time. Because otherwise goals just keep sort of floating around, and they're here 1 minute for a few weeks and away like will-o'-the-wisp, gone again. But if you put solid goals and write them down and then break them down into little steps in your journal, that's a good way of starting to plot the process and the progress of where you're going. So another thing that I enjoy is your favourite quotes. When you sort of get a favourite quote online, on social media, and the quote really speaks to you, it speaks to your heart, and you think it's the most amazing thing, and then you send it to your partner or you send it to a friend and go, oh my God, this is life-changing, this quote. And they go, oh yeah, fine. Oh yeah, that's okay, isn't it? Now, the reason that happens is that quotes, profound anecdotes and quotes, talk to our subconscious. And if a quote is grabbing you, if the words are grabbing you, there is something in that quote that is specific for you. So if there is a quote that just lights you up one day, stop for a minute, write it down on a bit of paper, or if you've got your journal on you, put it straight into the journal and make a big thing of it. Because these mantras are, these quotes that are speaking to our heart are talking to our subconscious as well, and they're there for a reason. So get your quotes. If you're a visual person and it's a magazine or something, cut it out. Obviously ask your partner first before you cut it out, and before they've even read it, which won't go down well. But yeah, favorite quotes with a picture, imagery, put it in your journal. List making, if you want to put your lists in of achievements, again, like sort of goals and visions, put your lists in there. Another big one, make a list of all the things you want to break out of your comfort zone. What am I constantly talking about? We're moving through a time of uncertainty, unfamiliar, uncomfortable, unknowing. One of the things we've got to learn a lot more, and the journal can help with this, is building up the confidence to deal and break through our existing perceptions of our comfort zone. So we're going to talk about comfort zones separately in a few days' time, but for now, start thinking about just writing down in your journal several things that you have decided that you're not going to tolerate anymore. It's a non-negotiable. I've got to break through this. I've got to expand that glass ceiling and smash that. I've got to do this because it's holding me back. And it might have been holding me back for decades. So, what did Susie say? You can't heal in the same environment that made you sick. Yeah, brilliant quote. Brilliant quote. Thank you, Susie. And, you can't, Einstein said you can't heal the space with the same mindset that created the problem in the first place. And it's so true. So we've got to get out of our mind. It's called growth mindset, not fixed mindset. Fixed mindset is very much that we're caught in the old habit loop of believing this is who I am, this is where I am, this is just me, it's just the way I am, and I can't change. That's going to disempower you. That is going to take away your power and tell you that, oh my God, this is the way I've been since a kid, I'm stuck with it, and now I can't change. That is a fixed mindset, and it's false. It's the biggest lie going. All of us have got the ability to have a growth mindset, and a growth mindset is about stepping and daring to have courage to step outside our comfort zone. And as I'm going to talk about in a couple of days' time, we don't have to do that in great big leaps. We do it in little nudges, and then we gradually build up our confidence. So another couple of things just before we finish and jump off. What inspires us? What motivates us? It's sometimes to grab your journal and just look at what really moves you. What moves your heart? What gives you that passion and purpose and meaning in your life? You know, put it down on paper, and you'll be surprised how that is the start of a flourishing. That you put words down. Remember, and you know, we've been taught this from a young age. You know, words are spells. Well, words are spells. The words you speak out to other people, the words you write down in your journal, the words particularly that you talk to yourself in, have power. So be careful, be mindful, be consciously aware of the words that your inner critic, when you are low and depressed and feeling out of sorts, look at the way you talk to yourself. And finally, start writing down what we call your personal philosophy. Personal philosophy is you would take your journal, write a few pages, write at the top of the page a question, you know, what do I stand for? What do I stand for? What matters to me? What do I really care about? What am I prepared to negotiate on? What am I not prepared to negotiate on? What's my non-negotiables? Who do I want to become in the best version of myself? So good luck with journal practice. It is the heartbeat of all personal development. I'm always going to bang on about journaling because it's proven scientifically from Penny Baker, but I know with the years that me and Jane have done it and what we see with our clients' lives and how they transform and change magically, journal practice. We should be teaching journal practice at every school, at every age, and hopefully in the future we will be. Have a great day, everyone. Lots of love to you all, and speak to you tomorrow where we're going to be talking about overthinking. Okay, take care. Bye.